Breathing is something that we do instinctively that is automatic. In many instances, we often disregard the necessity of controlling how we breathe. The Valsalva maneuver is a breathing technique that can help restore the heart to a normal heart rate if it starts to beat too rapidly. For example, as a pitcher, strengthening and conditioning the body is important. Pitchers may perform the Valsalva maneuver when lifting heavy weights. However, some people will perform this technique on the spur of the moment, while others will be unaware of the fact that they are performing it. The physiological processes of the Valsalva maneuver begins when there is rising pressure. When pressure builds up in the chest and belly, this causes blood to flow out of the heart and into the arms. For a short while, the blood pressure will rise as a result. While straining, the heart pumps less blood with each beat. The blood pressure gradually normalizes. The heart rate rises when you rest towards the end of the motion. Afterwards, it's followed by a time of recuperation where the blood returns to the heart, where the blood pressure then increases but returns to normal. The essential role of the lungs is gas exchange, which involves bringing oxygen into the body and removing carbon dioxide. When you inhale, the diaphragm is contracted downward and the chest muscles contract to pull open the chest, enabling the lungs to expand to their usual size, allowing them to push air outwards. When exhaling, the muscles relax, allowing the lungs to expand to their normal size, pushing air out. When you breathe in, it passes through your nostrils and into the nasal cavity, which is coated with mucus-producing cells. Air travels from the nasal cavity through the pharynx, then to the larynx, finding its way to the trachea where it separates into two main stem bronchi. Air then enters the lungs, which have three lobes. You have the upper, the middle, and the lower, whereas the left lung only has the upper and lower lobe. The bronchioles are the narrowing of the airways in the bronchi. The bronchial arteries supply oxygenated blood to the conducting bronchioles. Air reaches the respiratory bronchioles after passing via terminal bronchioles. The respiratory bronchioles eventually stop when there are just alveoli left, forming the alveolar duct, which is the final destination of inhaled air. When we wish to exhale, we relax the diaphragm, which domes back up, which allows the relaxation of the external intercostals, snapping back since the lung tissue is elastic. The intercostal muscles, which are located between the ribs, must be recruited if we wish to exhale. When it comes to pitching in baseball, our respiratory cycle varies due to pressure when playing in a game.
During exercise, our cardiovascular system goes through remarkable adjustments. Some changes include a large increase in heart rate and cardiac output, increased rate and depth of respiration, which requires enhanced blood flow to the respiratory muscles, vasodilation of the arteries and veins, and increased blood flow to the contracting skeletal muscles. In his book titled Skeletal Muscle Circulation, Ronald Corthis explained that the redirection of blood to our muscles is thanks to the sympathetic nervous system evoking baroreflex-mediated vasoconstriction in our peripheral organs in order to redistribute their blood flow to contracting skeletal muscle and maintain blood pressure. A baseball pitch is going to involve full body extension of the arms and legs, rotation of the trunk, and a quick adduction of the arm just before the ball is released. So the full body extension is going to come from the pitcher pushing off of his back leg towards the batter. That's going to involve the muscles of the glutes, your quads, and your hamstrings. The rotation of the trunk is going to come from your abdominal muscles. So you got your rectus abdominis, your obliques, etc. Finally, the movement and power generated out of the arm is going to come from your subscapularis, your lats, and the muscles of your rotator cuff. Those are the muscles that generate most of the force during pitching, therefore, they receive most of the redirected blood. In the duration of a game, there may come a situation that puts a bit of pressure on the pitcher. The bases could be loaded or the game could be tied. During those situations, the adrenal glands will begin to produce adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. Epinephrine acts to increase cardiac output and raise glucose levels in the blood. Its release also leads to increased norepinephrine levels. Norepinephrine's role is to increase alertness, arousal, and reaction time. An article on the effects of adrenaline on human muscle stated that infusions of adrenaline in physiological amounts alter human muscle contractions evoked by nerve stimulation, basically meaning that the infusion of adrenaline into the bloodstream increases the strength of muscle contractions and therefore leading to increased physical strength. That same article said that the effects of adrenaline on human muscle are due to the stimulation of adrenotropic receptors, which are receptors located on the surface of cells that get activated when they bind to a type of neurotransmitter called a catecholamine. In this case, those catecholamines are epinephrine and norepinephrine. Adrenaline forces the blood vessels in skeletal muscle to dilate and directs even more blood to the major muscle groups being used. The vasodilation leads to an increased amount of blood reaching those muscles, which means that there is more oxygen available for those muscles to use. This is why you experience a temporary boost in strength during an adrenaline rush. The interesting thing about adrenaline is that when it's active, an inverse relationship exists between systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Adrenaline causes an increase in cardiac contractile force, which increases systolic blood pressure, but because of the vasodilation of the skeletal blood vessels, diastolic blood pressure actually decreases. Now, while adrenaline can have beneficial effects on a pitcher, like the ability to throw harder, a boost in energy, and temporary pain blockage, it could also come with some disadvantages. The extra energy could lead to a disruption of rhythm, balance, and timing, and it could make off-speed pitches such as curveballs or sliders harder to control.
Finally, we reach the endocrine system. As you can see from the pictures above, there are numerous glands involved in the process of releasing the body's different hormones and regulating the body's different biological processes. For the purpose of a baseball pitch, we'll be discussing the specific hormone of epinephrine. Epinephrine is released by the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys, fitted like caps. The specific location for the release of epinephrine is the adrenal medulla, as you can see from the top left of your screen or in the middle of the screen. The release of epinephrine produces an effect on the autonomic nervous system by being released into the blood. The cells that secrete epinephrine are chromaffin cells. In turn, this causes a stimulation on the autonomic nervous system and can produce the fight or flight response. During a baseball pitch, epinephrine can be released due to numerous extrinsic factors, such as a large crowd, bases being loaded, or pressure which players typically experience during play or being on a bigger stage. Epinephrine can cause vasoconstriction, which subsequently increases blood pressure and dilates blood vessels. This dilation of the blood vessels also increases cardiac output as the force of contraction of the heart is higher. Whilst epinephrine also has other functions, such as raising blood glucose levels, this is less applicable when it comes to pitching a baseball or throwing a baseball. The endocrine system plays an important role for day-to-day life, and it is also interesting to see how it's applicable to sports, specifically baseball and baseball pitching. Thank you for listening to our presentation where we discussed numerous systems such as the endocrine system, the respiratory system, blood and circulation systems.